Hello and welcome to episode 263 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Small and Supercharged podcast. It is a solo with me, and this is following on from a little reel I did a few weeks ago, and it got a really good response and some really nice messages, and I thought it was a really good subject, she says, hopefully, to extend a little bit further. And it's kind of got two sides to it. I feel like I'm being cryptic, building the suspense. It's not quite what I'm doing, but still, it's got two sides to it, because let's just go for it, shall we? I'm going to call this podcast, well, if I remember, Don't Count Yourself Out. And there's a couple of aspects to this I really want to talk about. Now, the trigger for this for me, I hate that word, not the trigger, the catalyst, let's say, for this, for me, started when I saw quite a lot of posts, sort of meme type, quote type posts, which made a statement. I can't remember the exact one for a start, and actually I deliberately don't want to remember the exact one because I don't want it to be about one specific post, because that's not the case. What it is about a kind of narrative that I keep seeing, and it's bizarre because a lot of the time I see it from people who kind of, to me it's like a split. Half the time they're very empowering, very go, you can get everything you want, etc. And then the other half of the time it feels to me like excuses are being made via memes and graphics. Don't hunt me down yet, hear me out. So it'll be like, oh, I wanted to do X, but then Y happened and I couldn't be asked. And I get that. We all feel like that, don't we? We all feel like that. And I completely understand that. But what concerns me is that the kind of the narrative's mixed up. And I think that if people subscribe to a particular line of beliefs, they then subscribe to that aspect of beliefs as well. And I think it then becomes from just a flippant statement, a fact of life. I wanted to do X, but then this happened and I didn't. Often as well, I see, I wanted to do X, but I've got children and I couldn't, or I've got children and I didn't. And again, I get that. I've got 2 children. It's blooming hard work. But don't count yourself out because of stuff. Stuff happens. I get that. But the way I'm seeing this information come across, the way these things are written, the way they're said, it just, to me, feels like it's excuses, and people then start to believe those excuses. And we know how powerful our minds are. We know how powerful the way we think is and how it influences what we do. So if you start believing these things at the value that they are, I think what they're actually meant to do is meant to say to people, you're not alone, you've got this, we're all in the same boat, etc. Love that. But I think what it's actually doing is saying, yeah, you could be great, but this has happened, so don't worry about it. You carry on playing small. You stay there in your box. Because you've got this or this or this, don't you worry about it. And I hate that idea. It honestly, every time I see it, I grind my teeth a bit. And I think I grind my teeth in my sleep anyway, so that's probably something I should get looked at. So I don't need to grind my teeth anymore. But it genuinely makes me go, oh, again. And there's so much of it. It's just putting this narrative in that you could have achieved good things, but you can't now because of this life circumstance. So I am urging you not to write those posts. Share what's going on, absolutely. But I think when we put these posts out into the world as well, it reinforces our beliefs in that we could be great, but we can't because of this. And there is nothing more frustrating when you want to achieve something, you can see it in your sights, and then someone kind of comes and pats you on the head and goes, you can't do that because you've, insert whatever reason, because you've got kids, you've got horses, you've got busy life, you do this, you do this. So you wanted to achieve that thing, but bless you, you can't. You just carry on living in your head with this fiction. So to me, I find that all really harmful. I find this narrative of you could have been great, but you can't, really negative, and I find it absolutely at loggerheads with the much more positive, more strategic plan of how you're going to achieve the things. Because life is busy, whether you have got animals, businesses, children, relatives that depend on you, house renovations, loads of things make life busy. Life is busy. I think life now is busier than many people have ever experienced in the history of time, because we're pulled in so many directions. So I'm not saying you're not busy. I am not saying that you should be pushing yourself to the point of breaking at all. What I'm saying is, quite passionate about this, is let's move the narrative to, I wanted to do this thing, but I couldn't because of X, or that undertone of you could have been great, but you can't, to I'm going to achieve this thing. Oh, I don't want to use the word despite, but almost despite of this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Because every goal we set, every situation we want to achieve, there has to be a plan. There's a series of steps to get there. And the series of steps is not like a staircase. We don't start day one and then we progress at an even rate every day until we're at the top. And what you know, in 5 days we've achieved our biggest, shiniest goals. That's not how the game works. Because even if your whole life was focused on your one goal, stuff would jump in the way. People would be slow responding to you, because even if you don't have the various life pressures, if you don't have kids, dependent relatives, house renovations, animals, whatever, the other people who are contributing towards your goal in one way or another probably do. So there will be things, there'll be weekends, there'll be flipping bank holidays, don't get me started on bank holidays, that will throw you out. Some processes take a huge amount of time that on paper they shouldn't do. You should be able to do X, then Y happens that same moment, and then you're on to X, Y, Z. That does not happen. Things happen. Crikey, COVID happened 2 years. No, gosh, how many years ago? 3? Is it weird that it's kind of feels like it's here still, because it kind of is, but not? We can't always predict the things that will throw themselves in our path. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But let's not factor that in to our goals and dreams when it turns to what we want to achieve. It should absolutely be factored in my opinion, to the steps to get there, but not to what you want to achieve. I have seen some incredible women with children achieve absolutely jaw-dropping things. The children don't stop them. It might mean they have to have more help. It might mean that it takes them longer to get there. It might mean that they have to take a different route, but they still achieve the thing. I've seen people who have had hugely busy jobs and still achieving their goals connected to their passion. It might take them longer. It might do a really strange route. It might mean other things have to be sacrificed in their life. God, that sounds awful. Not like, sacrificial lambs or anything, but, watching TV or things like that. No, I don't think anyone has it easy, but I do think that we need to give ourselves a helping hand and not start telling ourselves we can't do things because of other things. If we want to do the thing, there is a path to do that thing. It may take you longer, it may be more difficult, but it's there. So this podcast it's going to be called Don't Count Yourself Out. So the first thing I want you to really notice, and this is what I've been noticing more, is these funny memes that are really actually, I think, undertone quite patronising. Almost like a pat on the head in graphic form. I absolutely hate them. I'm not saying people don't have hard days, and I'm not saying don't share your hard days. Absolutely share your hard days. But it's almost like there's this need to gather this club of people to then feel better about not achieving the thing. We seem to link a moment's issue to a long-term goal. Like, we can all have bad days. We can all have days when nothing goes to plan, when our big goals in the distance just seem to be getting further and further away. But that one moment, that doesn't make your entire plan worthless. It doesn't mean you should lower your expectations. It doesn't mean you should limit yourself. It doesn't mean you should go, I can't do that because of this thing. If you want to do it, you'll find a way. And I just don't think this, oh, bless you, narrative is helpful. So think about them. Do they make you feel better? Or do they make you almost kind of retract? That's wrong. But does it make it feel like you are being helped and supported, or almost, well, not, let's be honest? Is it potentially harmful to you achieving those things you want to achieve? Now, for me, I think they are, but you might disagree, and I would absolutely love you to disagree. Just be nice. You know, I'm always on Instagram. Well, I'm on all the social media platforms, which is probably a subject for another podcast, but I'd love your thoughts. So there will be a post about this the morning it's released. It'll be on Wednesday. Do leave your comments. I would genuinely like to know what you think about this. But I think what all this stuff connects to is people count themselves out. They count themselves out for that moment, that really challenging day they've had, and they go, I can't achieve that big dream. And at that moment, it's really easy to do that. I do it. We all do, but it's a moment. And I think then when we take that moment and we make a big thing about it, it becomes a lot more permanent, and it can actually be a part of the system in slowing you up in not achieving your goals, because you've allowed that moment to become almost part of your story and part of your narrative for why you're not achieving things. So, in my opinion, this kind of narrative is counting yourself out. You don't need to do it. Now, it might be that you had a goal and then X, Y, and Z happened and that goal has changed. That is fine. That is evolution. That is how we all work. We see the thing in the distance that we want, and maybe as we learn along the journey, we decide that actually that's not quite what we wanted after all. Fine. Brilliant. That shows growth. That shows an ability to learn, an ability to develop. Love that. But what I'm saying is, if you see your shiny goal and you have a bad day, it is a bad day. It doesn't mean that your whole goal and your whole plan is in a burning pile. It means that one day didn't go well. It might mean that your next day is incredible, and actually you get into that flow state and you absolutely smash it out the park, knock it out the park. I'm not very good with a metaphor. And you've actually not only caught up for the day before, but you've done loads more than you expected. But when we allow that moment to become part of our narrative, we don't. Because if things get a little bit tricky the next day, we go, oh, I can't do that because of X. So you are in control of this. You might not be in control of the stuff that happens around you, but you are in control of how you process it and what steps you take from that. People have tricky seasons. They have tricky weeks, months, years, genuinely. And that is part of life. I love that Jenna Kutcher talks about seasons. And I think that's a really cool way of doing it, because rather than thinking it's a huge stretch, actually it's a season. That doesn't mean in that season you can't do anything, but it might mean that stuff looks different to you. But you have got the control over how you process that. Do you maybe put one goal on ice but do something else different? Do you take different steps or slower steps? Or have you looked at it and go, actually, that's going to take me 3-4 hours to do in peace and quiet, and I don't have that at the moment, but these little jobs here, I can do these. Look at the goal, look at your situation, and adapt around it if you really want to achieve it. But please don't count yourself out. The decisions you make, the stuff you tell yourself, no one else needs to tell you. The stuff you tell yourself is so powerful in what you achieve and what you can accomplish, because you're capable of great things. We know this. But what you tell yourself is mega. So if you're telling yourself this stuff that I think is like a patronizing pat on the head, like, oh, you could have been great, but actually you can't now. Think about the long-term knock-ons of that kind of narrative on you. To me, it's actually really, really harmful. But I would absolutely love your thoughts on this. My advice in this situation would be, take the challenging times for what they are. So the children have just had, feels like forever, but I think it's 6.5 weeks off school. And in that time, I'll level with you, I've been incredibly stretched and stressed and overwhelmed at times, because I've got a few very large projects going on. Childcare, Child lunches, my God, those children eat. Well, all food, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner, but I'm used to breakfast and dinner. There's a lot going on. And some days it feels like there is far too much going on. And it has been very challenging to get stuff done. But I have, because, I don't know, probably I'm wired like that. But I didn't count myself out. Maybe for a day, maybe for a couple of days, I thought this is really, really hard. But I didn't then think, so therefore I need to give up on everything. Because that's not helpful. And that's what I'm seeing the undertone of a lot. It's a moment. It was 7 weeks, 6 weeks, genuinely felt like a year. You know, we went through COVID, we had to homeschool and also work. Things happen that throw you off course, but you have got the ability to navigate this in a positive way. You don't have to going back to the child example, oh, okay, I'll just leave them and do my goals. I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying just don't count yourself out, please. You're too good. There are too many things that have been achieved by too many people to show, to not have the evidence that things are possible, even with the balancing act. It's not easy, but it's possible. So if you want to achieve it, look for those figures who have achieved things. Look at how they did it. Have that as information, because to be honest with you, very few people achieve great things on their own. So don't think, well, they must have done it on their own. Probably didn't. Look at the ways that they did the things that you want to achieve, rather than saying, I can't do it because. If you want to do it, do it. Find the way to do it. A little bit ranty today. Anyway, I would love your thoughts on this. It is a subject that I did put up a post about on Instagram, I think, a few weeks ago, because I just kept seeing all these posts and I just thought absolutely not. And people sort of, I just didn't like the way it was kind of, we're, becoming this sort of load of excuses. I didn't like it, and I didn't think it was helpful, more importantly. I think being authentic, being real is important. I think saying you're having a challenging day, you're stretched, you're overwhelmed. Yeah, that's what it is. I think that's absolutely fine to share if that's the kind of content that you share. Completely get it. But I do think that then making that part of your mantra and your narrative is damaging, particularly when it's then other people kind of buy into it, because then what we're doing is it's just not helpful. So I'd love your thoughts on this. Please do screenshot, share to stories, tag me if you fancy it. And if you have got a few minutes free, well, I don't even know if it takes you a minute, to be honest, I would love you to rate and review the podcast. If you hop over to where you listen, you can rate it, you can review it. I would be incredibly grateful. Let me know and I will screenshot and share it as well. It would be lovely to see, well, some lovely 5-star reviews is what we're going for. I hope you've enjoyed that. We will catch up very, very soon, next week in fact. Have a great week and take care, and we will catch up very shortly. Bye-bye.